Okay, we're back. Sorry, that was totally my fault. Now look, I've got the camera out of focus. Oh, come on. Just focus, you stupid thing.
All right.
This is crazy. Okay, you know what I did? I had the YouTube, yes, I had the YouTube channel open at the same time on the other screen,
Oh,
so it was picking out the noise. Yeah, this is a learning curve. I wish it was.
very much so. Very
Yeah,
much.
so let's talk first of all about that hit piece on Paul. What did you think of that? What's your take on that? That digging into
yeah, I'm familiar with Sewer. I always got the impression. Well, let me back up and say I'm familiar with Adam Sewer. I got wind of him through there's a website called Blogging Heads TV, and what the premise of Blogging Heads is not unlike what you're doing here with the Hangouts, you and Paul and everybody. What happens is the pundits of the day get together and they kind of hash out issues on video, and you can watch it and comment on it and whatnot. So that's how I became aware of Mr. Sewer, and I followed a little bit of his writings, and I always got the impression that he was kind of like a knockoff of Malcolm Gladwell. You know, he's a racially ambiguous guy. My understanding is that he has a biracial background, and you know, he's definitely to the left, and you know, social justice warrior type. Really didn't have a problem with him, because I'm generally a live and let live guy. I only play a radical on TV, and so you know, I didn't really have a problem with him until this whole thing went down with Paul, which I really think is beyond the pale. I mean, whether it's true, not true, to me it doesn't make a difference. To me, the issue is, you know, I come from I guess I come from the old school in that, you know, one's private life, whatever one may think of it, is off limits. You know, they have a right to a private life. If you don't like somebody, or you disagree with somebody, disagree with their position, make the case as to why their position is whack, and leave it at that. You know, I really don't like attacking people on personal grounds, and I felt that BuzzFeed really, you know, went in the cesspool in doing that with Paul. Right, wrong, good or bad, I could care less what his personal life is. That's his personal life. It needs to be, and he made this clear in his rebuttal to Sewer and Katie J.M. Baker, who's somebody else I'm familiar with from her Jezebel days. I really don't like people going after somebody's personal life when they've made it clear that they want to keep their private life private. Paul made it clear that he wishes to keep his private life private. So I don't understand why it's necessary for these people to go after this man in such a personal, private way instead of dealing with the issue.
Points, right?
I beg your pardon?
They can't argue with the issues. All they can do is go after him personally. And it's so interesting that they go after an issue about reproductive choices for men that's so central to the men's rights movement, that Paul was actually in a very fortunate position of being able to make a choice. Most men aren't, right? They don't get the choice that he got. And that's somehow supposed to discredit him? I mean, that was just bizarre. I mean, and it points to, you know, I think reproductive rights are the game changer. They're the really big thing. But I'm wondering about your opinion of that, because I can see that as a really important issue for men who have a lot of assets and who have a lot of income that they might wish to, you know, decide what to do with on their own. Do you think it's the same kind of issue coming from your perspective as the urban affairs editor? Does this impact the groups and the communities that you look at in the same way that it does the different classes of people? Is it an issue of the same importance?
Certainly. You know, it's not just a racial thing. It's plenty of poor white guys out there. You know, the one thing that they can give a baby mama, I'm going to use that nomenclature, if you will. The one thing they can give a baby mama is their name. You can't, and I don't know how they do it in Canada, but here in the United States, you know, if a woman wants to get welfare benefits, she has to name a father. So he may be dead broke, have no assets or anything like that, but he does have his name. And his name means something insofar as getting welfare bennies are concerned. So it's in her interest to name somebody if she wants to get bennies. So yeah, this is and my personal opinion is that one of the reasons why we see what we see with regard to Black American life, all the acrimony and just not being able to get along, is in part due to so many Black men being dragooned into being dads of children that they didn't intend or want. Now, we could quibble over the percentage of it, how many, all the rest of it. I'm just simply saying that I'm not buying this argument that every Black man in America has kids that he intended to have. I'm not buying that argument. There are guys out there that consented to sex but didn't consent to parenthood, and that's the issue. Right. And there's a lot of women out there, more than we're willing to admit, who erroneously believe that they can basically, you know, I hate to put it like this, but basically screw a man into a relationship. You know, you have a baby with him, he's going to be locked in, and that's very erroneous. Very few women can make that work. In most cases, it's hell on earth for all parties involved, including the children, of course. So yeah, it's definitely a game changer, and it's interesting. My own discussions with a number of Black feminists, in particular, they're all stomped down against choice for men. They're just flat out against it, and they don't even see the cognitive dissonance or hypocrisy in their argument. You know, as I'm for. My thinking is this: I personally find abortion abhorrent for only one reason, because you are deliberately ending a human life. That's as far as I'm concerned. However, I'm willing to live with it. I'm willing to live with it, make my peace with it. I'll deal with the Creator when the time comes to account for my view on it. As far as I'm concerned, a woman has a right to have the end of human life in her body at any point, any time, for any reason. I'm good with it. I only want the same thing for men. That's it. That's all I want. I don't want to interfere in women's choices. I just want the same right for men to determine when and under what circumstances they are to become parents, sans their private life, i.e. sex. That's all I want.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I won't go so as far as to say that I think a woman can have an abortion at any time. I think that there are some reasonable limits that could be put on abortions, but I agree. And you know, it used to be something that feminists agreed with too. Karen DeCrow argued in the Supreme Court of New York for a man's right to choose parenthood. She actually won her case and lost on appeal, and I believe the rationale behind the loss was that it was the best interest of the child, which came first. And it's in the child's best interest to get money from the father, which is kind of ironic because it's hardly in the best interest of a child to be aborted. That argument was rejected for women's reproductive rights and then enforced for men's. That's ridiculous. Anyway, we've covered this subject, especially me. I do think it's the game changer. But I want to talk for a second about your latest article about James Robertson, the guy who walked 21 miles. Now, you called out, this was in the liberal media, this was treated as evidence of our deep problems with racism. This is evidence of the fact that we have no social safety net. This is evidence of the power that Republicans have. And you wrote an article saying that's not quite true, actually. There's bigger problems than that. There's a key reason for the decline. And I really want you to just say that again, because that was such a great article. What's behind something like James Robertson? What's the real issue?
Well, the real issue is the fact that Detroit is a poster child for all that's wrong with Black America and Black political leadership in particular. You have two words, Coleman Young, another two words, Kwame Kilpatrick. I mean, what did white people have to do with these guys? I mean, you know, the argument from the Black political left is that everything that goes wrong in Black American life can be reduced to racism, which is a silly argument. When you know, in the year 2015, where we have a Black president that was elected twice, and Black political leadership in the Black precincts in America for the better part of a half a century, the notion that every problem that Black people face is reducible to the white man is ridiculous. It just you know, whether you, no matter what your political orientation is, one, you know, the left, right, whatever, just think about that for a minute. And it's not only is it ridiculous and silly, but it really is a slap in the face to people like King, who, you know, fought their entire lives to make sure that Black people had the opportunity to determine their own destiny. The problem that a lot of Black political leadership doesn't want to admit, and by leadership here I'm also including the Black chattering classes, the Black social justice warriors, the Black feminists, all those people, they don't want to confront the singular fact that the black political leadership has failed. And they failed, most specifically, they failed men like James Robinson, who has to walk 21 miles in one of the worst and most dangerous cities on planet Earth to get to work every day. They failed him. Flat out. We need to say that. And I know that whites have a hard time saying it for the obvious reason, because, you know, if a white person sees reality, then they're tagged as a racist. So I'm saying it. I'm black. I'm white. I'm blue collar, just like James Robinson. I work from can't see in the morning to can't see at night. And I saw my city of Philadelphia get run into the ground by black mayors, black, city managing directors, black city councilmen, everything like that. They ran it into the ground. Okay, I've seen it. So it needs to be said.
Like, what are they doing? What's the corruption? They're just pocketing the money and keeping the.
Oh yeah, there's a book called Black Brothers Incorporated, right? Which talks, it's about here in Philadelphia, and it talks about a organized criminal organization called the Black Mafia. They were extant from the 1960s into the late 70s, early 1980s, and then a new criminal organization came along that was called the Junior Black Mafia. Excellent book. I mean, if you like true crime and the intersection it makes with racial politics and all that of the 60s, 70s, 80s, you'll love this book. It goes all the way up into the early 2000s when then Mayor John Street had a major, he was under FBI investigation for corruption. He wasn't involved personally, but everybody around him was. Powerful book, gotta read it. I mean, it lays it all out. And this is true in every black precinct in America. It's true in New York. It's true in, definitely true in Detroit. It's true in New Orleans. Every place you go where the black political leadership is in evidence, you see all kinds of major corruption, graft, incompetence, you name it. There was a huge corruption scandal. There was a huge scandal in Atlanta, teacher scandal, where they changed scores and whatnot for kids who clearly weren't able and proficient in what's being taught. They gave them passing grades anyway. That's a black school district. DeKalb County, that's black. That's all black people. Here in Philadelphia, it's the same thing. They closed down my high school. I'm a product of Germantown High School. Look it up. Germantown High School, on its 99th year in operation, they closed it. Black people running the school board, black people in the mayor's office, black people managing editor, managing director, black people in city council. This happened on their watch.
It's always about all of the money, isn't it? I mean, there's so many parallels between the racism debate and feminism, that feminism wants to blame the patriarchy and men for everything. And the whole social justice, this is all about racism. It's just another way of blaming something rather than address the issue, which is money. The class is what divides us. Money is what divides us. And I really like the way you talk about black feminists in that way, and the whole idea of a Miss Anne, which really is about ignoring the fact that they're trying to get into a class and blaming all their problems on race, because they just don't want to deal with the issue of money. Why is that? What is with this reluctance to accept that it's money that divides us?
Well, like I was saying, what definitely is class. I'm not familiar. I don't know if you're familiar with a gentleman by the name of John McWhorter, but John McWhorter is also a Philly homeboy. Grew up in Mount Airy section of Philly. We circled each other. I mean, I don't know him personally, but we ran in the same circles for years. Even when I was living in Jersey City, he lived in Jersey City. So I mean, it was it's like really really strange. But in any event, John McWhorter's made the argument that race just isn't the same. It doesn't have the same type of urgency that it did 50 years ago. It just doesn't. And a lot of these social justice warriors on the black hand side of things want to pretend like we're still living in 1965. We're just not. We're not. And it's that. It's the ideology and whatnot. But it's also, and you mentioned the articles I've written about black feminists being envious of Miss Anne. There is a lot of envy there. There's the view among that class of black women who feel that they are not, coveted and put on a pedestal and getting reaping all the rewards that they see around them in the form of certain white women. Obviously, all white women ain't reaping those rewards either. If you're an old white woman, if you're a fat white woman, if you're an ugly white woman, you ain't getting them rewards either. But that's another discussion. They see a certain class of white women presumably getting all these rewards, and they want that too, and they want to be a part of that. So really, when you study black feminism, if you just keep in mind Miss Ann, everything it becomes very clear and illuminated to you. It's really about that. If you look at a lot of the issues that black feminists talk about, they don't talk about things that day-to-day black people have to deal with. It's usually these small little niche issues that at best affect a small percentage of black people overall. Okay? And as a matter of fact, going back to James Robertson, I made the argument in another black forum last week. I said, now we've been told for years that all black men everywhere have privilege over all black women everywhere. Forever and ever, amen. Okay. I want the black feminists, and they're in this forum, I want them to show me how James Robertson has black male privilege over you, a black woman. Give me the evidence. I want to hear it.
I can answer. I know the answer to that. I really did read a lot of James Robertson's male privilege is expressed in the fact that he got to walk 21 miles to and from work, and nobody commented on his ass. He was at risk of being murdered.
Right.
He was at risk of being murdered, of being mugged, of being beaten, senseless. But his privilege meant no one commented on his booty.
Right. that's the extent of his privilege. Yeah. Yeah. It just the absurdity of it all, the banality of it all. It's funny, but at the same time, it's funny in an Oscar Brown sort of way. It's funny and it's not funny. It just goes to show you just how pathetic the black political leadership really is. It's pathetic, And the reason why they get away with this stuff is because of white guilt, to be quite frank. A lot of white folks just keep their head down and just let them go on ahead and do this stuff, and they give them a couple, as we put it in the hood, they give them the little 2 pieces of chicken and the biscuit and let them go on about their business. A lot of white folks figure, rightly so, that it ain't worth it to go to battle with these folks. They might wind up losing their jobs, and losing all the things that they work for and all that. So you just keep their head down and just let them go ahead and talk, but out of some sense of guilt. But the reality is that a lot of these folks are part of the problem. James Robertson is in the predicament he's in, not because of white people, but because of other black people who leech off at him and black men like him, all at the same time talking all this black shit. Excuse my expression. But that's what they're doing. It's I'm telling you, the corruption and the graft and the in-your-face cronyism and the incompetence is synonymous with black political leadership at this point. Anywhere you want to go where black people are in large numbers in this country. Baltimore, Detroit, Houston, New Orleans, Philly, you name it, go there and you'll see it. That's a fact.
Is James Robertson, that he's sort of, upright, hardworking, contributing member of his community, is he someone that you would describe as a Tyrone? I read quite a bit about your stuff about this idea of a Tyrone, which I think it's really interesting. It's not something that I'd heard of before, but a very interesting concept that plays out in some really interesting ways in the black community too. Would James be a Tyrone?
That's interesting because I got the idea of Tyrone from Hill Harper. I didn't come up with it myself. Tyrone is a friend of Hill Harper's, who he writes about in one of his books, and he only writes about him very briefly, like barely a page. But from what we get from what Hill Harper says about Tyrone is just a real smart guy who just happens to be blue collar. That's it. I don't really know about James Robertson's personal life to be able to say that he's a smart guy and potential Harvard material. I can't say that. But what I was talking about was a particular type of blue-collar brother that was encountering certain types of problems in the mating market. So I don't know if James Robertson would fit that or not, to be quite frank. But what is true is that he's definitely a working-class black man in a working-class city that has had to endure and labor under nearly a half a century of one-party, one racial rule And nobody in their right mind could say that Detroit is somewhere you want to live if you could. Nobody wants to live in Detroit if they could do it. Like I don't see you packing your bags and heading to Motown anytime soon. Nobody's going to want to do that. You know what I mean? So you know, you have to confront that. You know, I'm an empiricist. I deal with reality as it is, not the way I want it to be, but as it is. And the reality as it is that black political leadership sucks. There, I said it. I mean, yeah, there may be some notable exceptions here and there. I'll grant that. But in the main, if you look at the time when black political leadership came to power in any major black precinct and roll it up to present, the real standard of living for black folks in general, and black men like James Robinson in particular, has gone significantly backward. And I'm not trying to hear anything about some white guy did it. You know, it was on your watch.
Man, it sounds like you're making the argument that black people are like just humans, and sometimes they get corrupted by power.
Sure, but see, the thing about it is, everything is reducible to racism, i.e., the white man. So corruption is reducible to the white man. Incompetence is reducible to the white man. Graft and cronyism is reducible to the white man. That's silly. That's just downright ridiculous, man. And not only is it silly and ridiculous, but it's also very disrespectful to guys like James Robinson, who I'm pretty sure voted in at least a few elections for, you know, black political leadership. And what does he have to show for it? This guy's got to like walk across. He has to rely on the kindness of strangers to keep from walking 21 miles in one of the most toughest, most violent cities on the planet. Where's the privilege? Other than, you know, somebody not commenting on your behind. Okay, great. Where's the privilege other than that?
I mean, you know, there isn't a lot to be had there, but it just goes to show that voting on the basis of race or gender, vote for someone because they share your gender, doesn't mean they're going to care about your gender. It doesn't mean they're going to care about your race. You should vote on the issues regardless of who holds them. But that doesn't square up with our social justice narrative about how the world works.
Right.
I'm really losing my voice here, but we're going to keep going anyway.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, while you try to fix your voice, let me just say this: that yeah, there's a very deep sickness that in my opinion, a lot of black folks have. This neuroses with this notion of airy, dirty laundry, of you know, racial solidarity, uber alles. And I you know, if you use any kind of reason at all, you can't go by that type of metric to vote for somebody simply because they're black. I mean, that was the whole thing with beyond Barack Obama himself. The argument was to vote for him because he's black. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, it's not vote for him because he's the most qualified man for the job. It's vote for him because he's black. And I told people it was a mistake, you know, and I didn't say that because of anything personal I had against Obama. Like we was talking earlier about the very personal attacks against Paul by BuzzFeed. I feel the same way against personal attacks against Obama and his family. I think that's beyond the pale, man. We're dealing with the issues here. I could care less about his marriage, you know, whether his wife is, you know, a transvestite. I could care less about all that stuff. I care about the issues. I didn't vote for him because he married somebody that I think may or may not have been a transvestite. I care about whether or not he's qualified and is willing to do the job that he was elected to do. That's what I care about. You know, so all this other stuff I could care less about. You know what I mean? And my argument was, and I made.
Wait, I didn't even hear this rumor. Michelle Obama is a transvestite?
Yeah, there's this argument that's going around that, you know, she's really a man and all the rest of it. I could care less about that, whether it's true or not. So what? My thing is he qualified? Yeah. So what? My thing is he doing? Is he, first of all, is he qualified for the job? Secondarily, is he willing to do the job? My argument with regard to black men particularly is that Obama has done nothing for them. And a real good argument could be made that during his tenure, the standard of living for black men in general, particularly like those brothers like James Robinson, their standard of living has gone backward over the nearly 8 years he's been in office.
Well, he let the feminists.
And when I talk about this issue with other black men, they can't lay out for me exactly what they have gained from the Obama government in nearly 8 years in office. They can't explain it. They can only go back to the racial thing, which I think is silly.
And not a very good reason to vote for someone. You and I have talked a lot about a book that what the research took place in Philadelphia called Promises I Can Keep. And I still haven't read that yet. It's on my list, but I haven't read it. What about that book? It makes it so interesting for you. Oops, did I lose you?
Hang on, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty.
Okay. Were you able to
your voice is really chopped up.
Okay, it's about
the
promise.
internet connection is strong. I don't know if it's something on your end or what, but
Is it better now?
Go ahead.
Okay, you and I have talked a lot about a book called Promises I Can Keep that research in Philadelphia. And I just want you to talk about why you like that book so much. Why does it speak to you so much?
Okay, I can't hear you. I'm having trouble hearing you. Try it again.
Let me type it in your chat box, okay? Okay, Promises I Can Keep.
Yeah, I heard you say Promises I Can Keep. That's a really excellent book. It was written here in Philadelphia 10 years ago by two white sociologists, Karen Eden and Maria Fallis. And they studied low-income mothers, white, black, and Hispanic, both here in Philadelphia and over in Camden, New Jersey. They lived here, they lived in Camden, and they studied them for like 5 years. They tracked like almost 200 women. And it was really good groundbreaking study, groundbreaking work, something that sadly, black academics have done, sad to say. And they really brought a realism to the debate surrounding, low-income welfare issues and baby mom issues and baby dad issues, deadbeat dad, all the rest of it. They brought a really useful contribution to that debate. And I was really glad they did it. The book is a heck of a read. Very good book. And I know very well the areas that they studied because they were areas that I either spent social time in and or worked in Philadelphia, notably Kensington. I came right out of high school and started my work life in Kensington, which was historically an industrial area of Philly. And when I came along in the late 80s, early 90s, right out of high school, that area was, not just on its way out, it was in its last death throes. So yeah, I know the areas that they studied very well, and I know the people went very well.
This plays right into your idea about a Tyrone and the dating strategies that are available for black men, right?
I think you said mating strategies?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Still having trouble hearing you. Something's up with the feed. It's like real choppy. But
okay, let's try big man culture. You have some ideas on that. Uh-oh.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Yeah, you're on a Wi-Fi connection, aren't you? That can be really, really dicey trying to connect. Is it getting any better? Okay. Looks like we've got some technical details that are going to bring our show to a bit of an earlier end, unless maybe
I'm here. I can kind of sort of hear you, so I'm trying to see what I could do on my end to kind of fix this. But so keep talking. See if I can try to fix this.
Okay. Well, you have some really good ideas about big man culture, and that it has some very dramatic implications for men in the black community. And big man culture is essentially where all the women go after one very small group of successful black men, and that leads to some certain fallout in the black community. It would be anyone who wants to read about Obsidian's ideas about this big man culture should go check out his work at his old blog, Just for Guys. We're bringing some of that stuff into The Voice for Men. He's writing a lot of new stuff for Voice for Men too. But that his older blog, Just for Guys, is really pretty fantastic. Did you get anything worked out there?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks. So, well, let me. I kind of got some of what you were saying, so let me just respond to this and we muddle through this thing. My chief beef with and I refer to them as the black political leadership class. The black educated class have a very myopic view of American life, in my opinion, a very myopic view of American life. What I attempt to do is deal with the concerns of the rank and file black guy, as opposed to the black guy that you see in Hollywood productions and written about in books and stuff like that. That's a very small, narrow band of black men overall. I try to write about everyday stuff with everyday guys. I mean, most brothers aren't, high-level professionals, white-collar America. That's just the plain truth of it. We could quibble over why that is. I'm just saying it is. Most brothers ain't there. Okay, most brothers not doing that. So you have to go where most brothers are, and most brothers tend to be working in service or trade, or lower middle class positions. And you have use that as a starting or jumping off point, and go from there into the relations with women and and life and love and all the rest of it. And in my opinion, I find that there's really very little written from that perspective, unless it's to show up how they're defective in some kind of way, or they have problems or something like that. But just to talk about things from their perspective, I'm not aware of anything. I'm reviewing a book right now, as a matter of fact, for A Voice for Men, and it's an erotica novel, and it has the same conceits that Tyler Perry movies have and other productions in Black America have, that it centers on two conventionally attractive, relatively young black professionals. One of the guys in the book is like 6'5". I mean, the percentage of men that height in America was like 5%. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. You know what I mean? It's not useful for the vast majority of black people. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I want to talk about stuff. How does any of that help James Robertson? It doesn't. He doesn't. For all intents and purposes, James Robertson doesn't exist in that type of situation. So I wanted to talk about things that do speak to a James Robertson, or for that matter, a Tyrone.
Are you able to get back with us?
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Okay, you're back. We'll just keep muddling through whatever. Just keep talking. Oops. Okay, I'll keep talking. Oh,
I can see you, but I can't really hear you. It's very chopped up.
Yeah, that's
I don't know if it's my PC or I don't know what's going on here.
If you're using a Wi-Fi connection rather than a hard connection, it can get a little bit dicey. I'm on a hard connection, but it's all right. We'll live.
Right, I'm checking my Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi speed is at its fastest, so that's good.
Okay, we're still having. Okay, let's talk about dating choices and oh, actually no, I have a better one. Personal boundaries. Personal boundaries. That there is an issue in the black community.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wrote an article about that. And yeah, it's my argument is that black men, and I'm talking about the rank and file black man now. I ain't talking about the Obama brother. I'm talking about the rank and file black man. It's my position that the rank and file black man doesn't have any boundaries, worth respecting, to be quite frank. I mean, we don't talk about black men. The idea of using the terms black men and boundaries don't even, it's like an alien concept, you know what I mean, to a lot of people, and this is especially with regard to black women themselves. I mean, a lot of black women themselves don't feel that black men have any boundaries. If you sit down and talk to rank and file brothers, you'll see this going out. I wrote an article about this, and I got a lot of emails from guys, on the down low saying, yeah, I can relate to what you just said there, because, thus and so. So yeah, my argument is that black men have just as much a right to personal space and personal boundaries as anybody else. And part of the reason why it is where it is is because of black men themselves. A lot of black men are the number one thing that really hurts black men isn't racism, or for that matter, black women. It's their own apathy. You know, this is an attempt on my part to shake a lot of black men out of their apathy. You know, closed mouth don't get fed, man.
Right. Do you think this is where you think the whole concept of game and pickup artists has something valuable and important to convey to black men in terms of building up that confidence? Is that a fair thing to say?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I was talking about game and some of the messages from the pickup artist community being helpful for black men in terms of developing that kind of confidence and getting rid of that apathy and starting to care.
I'm having a hard time. I'm hearing you, so I'm having a hard time responding to what you asked. I can't hear it. This disconnect is what's going on here? You were coming in great at first, and then all of a sudden it just got choppy for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, I tried sending a message through. It's something that sort of privately at A Voice for Men we've had a lot of conversations about the role of game and about the role of pickup artists and how that plays out in a different way depending on what community you're using that in.
I mean, I can hear your voice. It's just real for whatever reason. I'm not sure why that is, but the feed is real choppy.
Okay, well, maybe we can
hang on.
On a different interview. It seems like we only have about 8 minutes left anyway in the interview.
Keep on. I can see if I can try to figure it here.
Yeah, I think we'll probably put an end to this. I do want to announce for next week that I'm going to be talking to Scottish vlogger, YouTuber, Goodfellow, and possibly joined by Irish men's rights activist John Gormley as well. Hopefully my voice will be restored by then. But if it's not, we'll do it anyway. So next week on Suck It Up Buttercup, there'll be Goodfellow and John Gormley, Obsidian. I know you can't hear me, but the first part of this interview was really interesting, really great. Thanks for being here with us, and thanks everyone for watching. We will just keep trying, and hopefully this will keep getting better as we go on. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, thanks everybody.